Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CBI webinar about natural ingredients, market entry guidelines. We're going to discuss today. This will be, I'm going to the next slide now, I hope so. Yes, this will be the agenda for today. We have the CBI introduction, which I will do. And then we will have Amarjit Sahota of Ecovia Intelligence to tell you about the market entry guidelines for natural ingredients. And we also have a guest, which is Fabian Link from Africrops. He's an importer of natural ingredients, among those moringa and baobab. And he will also tell something about his experience. And at the end, we have room for questions to answer the questions. And I would like you, you can do this during the presentation already, to put your questions in the question tab within this functionality. And then we will select some questions to be answered. So first, I will Vivian, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Thomas, we can hear you.
Okay, because I got some doubts about it. Thank you. I'm going to tell you about CBI. CBI is the Center for the Promotion of Import from Developing Countries. And our mission is that we connect developing small medium enterprise in developing countries to the European market. And with that, we contribute to sustainable and inclusive growth in those countries. And with that, we contribute to sustainable development goal number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. That's the sustainable development goal of the United Nations. Next slide. Okay, I've got kind of my slides confused. Sorry for that. These are the CBI target countries. And we are more and more active in Africa with new projects and programs, and also active in the Middle East and Asia. At the moment, we still have some running programs in Latin America, but we will not start new programs in Latin America. We have 14 focus sectors, and 3 of them are in natural ingredients. That's natural food additives, natural ingredients for cosmetics, and natural ingredients for health products. The target groups we have are exporters, business service organizations, policymakers, and importers. And of course, most of them, the target group, are the most important target group are the exporters themselves. And the business service organizations and policymakers will help them. And we have a close contact with importers in the European Union, because those will be the buyers of the products of the exporters. When we do a program, CBI. You can find new programs on our website as well. We do company coaching for the companies in the programs. We do trainings. We have sessions about export enabling environment, and we do market entry programs. When it's not Corona times, we organize missions to trade fairs and that kind of things. And last but not least, we have market intelligence, and I'm going to tell you something about market intelligence now. We offer market analysis studies, which are studies about demand in Europe, and we offer studies about the trends, which has main trends and tips and how to best seize the opportunities deriving from new trends. And we have market entry studies. Market entry studies are the buyer requirements, the tips for finding buyers, tips for doing business, and tips for organizing your export to Europe. And on a number of projects, we do product fact sheets. Those are promising export products within the sector. Okay, we're now going to the website. So this is our website. When you go to market information, you see all the sectors. And for example, let me choose now natural ingredients for health products. And if you're there, you see all the studies we offer. These are the demand study, the trend study, the requirements. What requirements should your product to comply with to export to the European Union? And then we have here the tip studies to find buyers, how to do business, organize your export. And here we have the promising exports products. For example, if you go to Moringa, you'll find studies about exporting Moringa to Europe. You have the market potential, which says more about how big is the European market, what are the current main importing countries, that kind of information. And we have the market entry study. And if you go to that, you will find here, you'll find all the information on entering the market. You can scroll through it, but if you want, you can also download the research. Okay, that's my part of the presentation. I will now give the floor to Amarjit. And he will start his presentation.
Hello, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, I can hear you, Amarjit. So I think the rest as well.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to make a start. I'm going to talk about market entry guidelines for natural ingredients in Europe. So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those in Africa and in Asia. And this webinar is really designed, or this seminar has really been designed for producers in developing countries to help them access the European market. So what I want to do this morning is to give you a snapshot what's happening in the market. I want to cover some of the major trends. I want to talk about how you can access the European market, some of the pitfalls, and I want to give you some guidelines. And I want to finish by giving you some future projections. So first, an introduction to our company. We were originally formed as Organic Monitor in 2001 with a mission to assist operators in the natural and organic products industry. And how we assist them is through these services. We do market and technical research, business sustainability consulting, seminars and workshops, and we do sustainability summits for the food industry, cosmetics industry, and cleaning products that we do Europe, North and Latin America, and Asia Pacific. And because of the pandemic, most of these events are now online. We have our Sustainable Food Summit next week. We have Asia Pacific edition, which was supposed to be in Singapore. It's going to be online in March. And we have a European edition, which was supposed to be in Amsterdam. That's also going to be online at the beginning of June. Then we have a Latin American edition, which at the moment is scheduled for Brazil. So these are the events that we do. And here's the list of selected clients. So as you're aware, we're doing this study for the CBI, the Dutch government. We've also done similar projects for different government agencies in Latin America, in Asia, in Europe, etc. And then we've got a list of the clients on the right-hand side, which are private companies, which include small companies, dedicated natural organic companies, as well as large multinationals. So let's go straight into this webinar. What are we really covering here? When we're looking at natural ingredients, we're looking at the use of these ingredients for three sectors: the cosmetics and personal care products, food and beverages, and health products, which refer to nutritional supplements, natural remedies, aromatherapy products, etc. I want to start with some major trends. What are the big trends which are affecting the use of natural ingredients in Europe? The first one is we have an aging population. Unlike Asia and Africa and Latin America, the population in Europe is becoming quite old, and I'm going to cover that a bit later. There's concerns about contentious ingredients like additives, like preservatives, and chemicals which are added to consumer products. There's a rise in vegans and vegetarianism across Europe, and that's leading to a rise in plant-based foods. And another trend is more and more ethical sourcing and labeling schemes which are used for foods, for cosmetics, and for consumer products. If we look at the first trend, Europe has got an aging population, and here shows how the demographics of Europe are changing over a 50-year period. In 2001, only a quarter of the population was above 55 years old, and that's projected to reach 45% by 2050. So what we're seeing is a big demographic shift. Consumers are living longer, they're getting older, and because of that, they're buying more and more health and wellness products. And as a consequence of that, they're looking at organic foods, they're looking at natural personal care products, essential oils, aromatherapy products, etc. A second trend is how consumers want to avoid contentious ingredients, and that's manifesting itself into sales of organic foods. Germany, which has the biggest market for organic foods in Europe, this was a survey done by Ecovia in 2019. And if you look right on the bottom there, 90% of consumers buy organic foods in Germany because they have less additives. And that's joint number one reason, along with animal welfare. And this is a study that we did quite a few years ago now. What we did was we interviewed 100 buyers in the UK, buyers of natural personal care products, and we asked them, how important is it for you to avoid synthetic chemicals when buying natural and organic cosmetics? As you can see, 53% said it was very important, 37% said it was important to them, and combined that's 90% of consumers who are buying these natural and organic cosmetics are doing so because they want to avoid synthetic chemicals. Now, a big trend here happening in Europe, and not just here in Europe, across the world, is a growing demand for plant-based foods. This was research done by Google Trends, and they're showing the number of searches being done for veganism. And as you can see, there's been big exponential rise in the last few years. So consumers are becoming more and more interested in veganism, in vegetarianism, and moving away from animal-based proteins. And the reasons for them to buy less meat products or to consume less meat products are quite varied. We've got animal welfare, which is quite high for non-meat eaters. You've got health reasons, which is an important reason for most consumers who are actually eating meat. And then you've got the environment as well, which is quite high for both groups. So we're seeing a big shift towards plant-based foods, and the reasons are quite varied. What we're seeing in this sector was that 10 years ago, most plant-based foods were marketed as dairy-free, meat-free, they were organic, and they were made for consumers who really cared about ethical issues. But we've seen a big shift in the last few years, whereby new products are being launched. they're not marketed as dairy-free or meat-free, but they're marketed as plant-based. And the texture and taste is almost identical to animal-based products. And I've got examples there, Just, which producing a mayonnaise, and they're producing eggs. And you've got almond milk, which is a very good substitute for dairy milk. And the general trend here is this is developing as a standalone category. It's not just for consumers who are vegetarian, who have an allergy towards lactose. It's standing alone as a big category whereby consumers who want to have more plant-based foods, they're going to these products. The other sector I want to cover is organic foods, and we've seen a very big rise in sales of organic foods in Europe. This chart here shows that sales have increased from $8 billion US, eightfold to $47 billion over a period of 2 decades. And that increase is going to expect it to continue in the upcoming years. What are the drivers? Why are consumers buying organic foods? We see 4 major drivers. The first one is concerns about pesticides and agrochemicals, and consumers want to avoid them, and because of that, they're buying organic products. We're seeing increasing distribution which was before in just the health food shops, organic food shops, has now moved to mainstream retailers, to supermarkets, hypermarkets, discounters, department stores, etc. Retailer private labels are having a big impact. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. And we're also seeing organic ingredients being used more from the catering and food service sector, from cafes, from restaurants, from hotels, pubs, etc. They're using more and more organic ingredients. Now, private labels are having a very big impact in the organic food market. And I've just got an illustration over here. All leading food retailers in Europe are now selling organic foods under their private labels. And some examples here, Auchan in the top left-hand corner, they're selling over 50 products for less than €1 in France. You've got Albert Heijn supermarket in Netherlands. They're selling over 1,300 organic products under their private label. And the bottom right-hand corner, you've got Coop Switzerland. Their private labels represent almost 50% of all organic food sales in Switzerland. And here in the UK, Tesco Organic, they've got over 800 organic products. So private labels are having a very big impact in this market. The second sector I want to cover is natural and organic cosmetics. We define these as cosmetic and personal care products, which if you look at natural cosmetics, they contain plant extracts and natural ingredients, but they also avoid synthetic chemicals like parabens, phthalates, SLS, petrochemical oils, etc. Organic cosmetics, the difference between them and natural cosmetics is that they have the plant ingredients, the natural extracts, etc. They avoid the synthetic chemicals, but they also have organic ingredients and or meet private standards like Cosmos or Entrt. The categories that we look at here, it's skincare, it's hair care, oral care, deodorants, color cosmetics, and others. So it's not just limited to color cosmetics like foundations, mascara, etc. We're looking at the whole personal care space. Now, according to that definition, the European market was worth 3.9 billion euros in 2019. That's a market share of 5% of all personal care products in Europe. The market share is actually closer to 10% in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. That means almost 1 in 10 cosmetic products in those countries is now natural or organic. However, unlike organic foods, most sales of these products are still from the specialist retailers. It's from the organic food retailers and the health food shops. A big trend in this market is that large multinationals have all come into this market, and most of them have introduced natural organic lines. Here are some examples over here. Beiersdorf, which is the biggest cosmetics company in Germany, they launched the Pure and Natural range in 2011. You've got H&M, the biggest fashion retailer in Europe, or one of the biggest in the world. they launched the H&M Conscious line, which is the certified line of skincare products a few years ago. Last year, Colgate, they launched the first Cosmos certified toothpaste in supermarkets, and that was launched in January last year in various European countries. You've got L'Oreal. They've actually launched several lines of natural organic products. They launched the Garnier Bio range in various European countries in 2019. Now, the topic which everyone's talking about is really about COVID-19, about the pandemic. And one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar and not as a physical seminar is because of the pandemic. So what impact is this having on the market? And what we want to first talk about is the impact in terms of the ingredients. What we've seen at the beginning of the pandemic, there was quite a big shortage of natural ingredients. There was a spike in demand for hand sanitizers, for wipes, etc. And this caused the shortage of aloe vera, lemon myrtle, and certain ingredients. We also had disruption in supply chains. Countries like India entered a lockdown in March, and processing facilities, production facilities all closed. And because of that, there was a big disruption in terms of ingredients coming in from India and other Asian countries. And what we've also seen now, as a result of this whole disruption being caused by the pandemic, companies in Europe, they're now starting to re-look at their supply chains. They're thinking, do we really need to supply from different parts of the world? Do we need to source from different parts of the world? Maybe we need to start sourcing more locally, if not regionally, for certain ingredients. So we expect there to be some big changes in the upcoming years because of the disruption caused by COVID-19. Now, what impact is this having on the market and consumers? So if we look at the market first, there's been a lot of retail disruption. If you look at food products, that has not been so much affected. But if you look at beauty products, personal care products, there's been temporary closures of department stores, beauty retailers, concept stores. That's caused a lot of disruption for a lot of companies who are making these products because their outlets have been forced to close. We're also seeing closures of hair salons, beauty centers, nail clinics, as well as restaurants, cafes, hotels, bars, and that's caused a lot of disruption as well. If you're a supplier of food products to that sector, then your market has really dried up. However, the big winner during COVID-19 has been online retailers. Amazon reported a very successful year last year, and a lot of online retailers reported record sales as a result of the pandemic. So on one hand, you've had various outlets which have been forced to close. Non-essential retail has been forced to close, but online retailing has seen a very big surge because of the pandemic. Looking at the consumer level, what we've seen is that consumer demand for natural and organic products has increased. As I've shown before, there's been a big increase in demand for health and wellness products even before the pandemic. But because consumers are now looking at personal immunity, they're buying more supplements, they're buying more organic foods, they're using more natural remedies. However, the bigger picture is that consumer spending power is going down. In Europe, we're having the biggest recession for 100 years. We're seeing people being forced to do home working. There's a lot of social distancing. There's a lot of closures of many businesses, and consumers are becoming more frugal in the way that they're spending their money. And the last factor is consumers are changing the way that they buy products, the way that they eat, the way that they're using cosmetics, the way that they're using personal care products. So this is going to cause a big shift in terms of the type of products that they will buy and how they will use them in the upcoming years. Now, in the second part of my presentation, I want to talk about market entry. I think a lot of the audience here today, they really want to know is how can I get into the European market? What do I have to do? And how can I be successful? Now, one caveat here, I'm covering three sectors: the cosmetics industry, the food and beverage industry, and health products. and they are quite varied, but I will try my best to give you some broad guidelines. Now, what I want to do is I want to ask you all a question. What are the main barriers that you face when exporting to the European market? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a poll, and I want all of you to give an answer. Now, when I actually prepared this, I actually had 7 answers, and then I was told that I can only use 5 for the poll. So I've got rid of getting financing, I've got rid of suitable manpower resources, I've got documentation along with regulations. And what I want you to do is just to spend a few, 10 seconds or whatever to give your answer. What are the main challenges that you face when you're exporting to the European market? Okay, I think I've got the results here. Okay, hi. Okay, so I think you should have got the answers on your screen, and so the number one answer I've got is 59% finding buyers, then it's meeting industry standards, product quality specifications, and meeting regulations. So let me just have a look. Okay, so that's the answers which I have. Okay, I've got some responses here. It's too quick. Okay, that was too quick. Let me see if I can do that again. Unfortunately, I've only got the option to do it once, unfortunately. I've only got the option to do it once, so I'm sorry if it was a bit too quick. But from previous webinars that we've given, the feedback we've always got is finding buyers is always the number one problem. And let me talk about that a little bit. So the first step that you should do, let me just go back. First step that you should do is when you're going to look at buyers, is the first question is, what is the value chain for your ingredient? And we've got an example here for the value chain for baobab. Baobab, which is grown in Africa, and it's being used by the food industry, cosmetics industry, as well as health products. And the first step that you need to do is to identify what is the supply chain. So collectors who collect the baobab, the processors who process it into powder or into a use which can be used by the cosmetics and health products industry. Then it goes to an agent or importer distributor, and then to a processor, and then it's used by the end users. So that's the first step, to understand what is the supply chain, which are the companies involved. And then the second step is, what type of companies should you target? Now, the key thing I want to show here is the supply chains are not the same for all ingredients. They're going to vary for ingredients in the same industry. They will vary for ingredients which are being used by food industry, cosmetics industry, but also in terms of their application as well. So to illustrate that, for natural essential oils, which are also used by those 3 sectors, you have a difference here. You've got imports being done by importers, distributors, as well as processors, and not just agents, whereas that's going to vary according to others. Sorry, just for a second. Okay, I've just been told that the poll results are still there. Can everyone see the screen now? Okay, right. So I want to just highlight that one more time. The distribution structure. So as I was saying, this is a value chain for Baobab, and what you need to look at is you need to look at the companies involved in the value chain for your ingredients. And here for Baobab, you've got the agent or the importer, which is distributing, which is importing the products. And for natural essential oils, it's going to be the importer, distributor, or the processor. So the questions you need to ask is, what is the supply chain for my ingredients? And what type of companies should I target? And a common mistake which companies make when you're supplying natural ingredients to Europe is that there's a preoccupation to look in terms of the end users. They tend to go for the food companies, the cosmetic companies, and health products companies. What you need to look at is the companies which are actually importing from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America, and you need to target them. So that's one of the key mistakes which companies make. Now, that can be a bit difficult. And just to highlight that, and just to highlight some of the intricacies over here, this was a study that we did for CBI in terms of natural ingredients for health products. And it just shows you the different type of companies being involved. You've got large and medium-sized buyers who are buying big volumes. An example is Nexera. You've got small to medium-sized buyers, and you've got companies like Trade in Organic, Organic Herb Trading. Then you've got the large to medium-sized health product producers, and these are processors, companies like DSM, Glanbia Nutritionals. Then you've got the small to medium-sized natural and organic health product companies who can also import direct. Now, you've got 4 different classes of buyers over there, and the ones which are going to be most appropriate for you will be dependent upon your ingredients, the volumes, and in terms of the quality of your ingredients as well. So there is no simple answer to that question, who are your target buyers? You really need to look at your supply chain, you need to look at the companies which are involved, and then you need to see whether they can deal with your quality, your volumes, and your specific ingredients. However, if you look at the CBI studies that we've done, if you go to the CBI website and you look at specific studies for natural ingredients, for health products, for natural ingredients, for cosmetics and food additives, that will give you a very good idea in terms of understanding the supply chain, to understand the companies involved, and to understand how you can approach them. Now, there are a lot of opportunities. The European market is very attractive. However, there are a lot of barriers to entry. And in this slide, I just want to highlight some of the key ones. One of the big barriers is regulations. What we find is the European market is probably the most regulated market in the world for natural ingredients. You've got regulations here which products and ingredients need to be registered, you need to go through safety standards, you need to prove that there's compliance to a lot of regulations. And that's more so than the North American market, more so than in Asian countries like Japan, etc. And those regulations keep getting updated. So it is quite difficult. And buyers have quite high requirements in terms of quality, and those requirements continue to keep on rising. So it's not so easy. And then you've got industry standards, certification. In the case of natural ingredients, they're looking at organic, they're looking at fair trade, and they're looking at ethical sourcing, which I will cover a bit later. And then you've got competition from competing products, from competing countries which are exporting, but also in terms of other companies in your own country which are competing with you. So there's a lot of competition. However, I just want to illustrate what's happening for these natural ingredients. And I've picked out 2 studies that we've done for the CBI. This is imports of alternative sugars, which include coconut sugar, into the EU. And if you look at the bottom there, the green bar and the green line and the blue bar, sorry, imports of alternative sugars into Europe are increasing. They've been increasing over the last 3 or 4 years, and we expect that to continue. And this one here shows essential oil imports into the European Union. And this shows that imports of essential oils have increased by 67% between 2011 to 2018, which is the top green line. And in terms of volume, which is the blue bar, that's increased by 22% from 2011 to 2018. So the general trend, Europe is importing more and more natural ingredients from non-European countries. So there are opportunities there, and we expect imports to continue to increase. So what does all of this mean? Where are the opportunities? Here we've outlined some of the opportunities for natural ingredients. There's a big demand for plant-based proteins, something I will cover a bit later. I've talked about already. Palm oil alternatives, things like coconut oil, babusa oil, natural sweeteners, things like agave syrup, things like stevia, as well as coconut sugar, seaweeds, which are used by the food industry, by the supplements industry, as well as the cosmetics industry, and really a wide range of other natural ingredients. There's very high demand for them in Europe. I want to close by giving you some future projections, and I want to give you some food for thought. So let's talk about what we expect to see in the upcoming years. The first thing is there's going to be more and more use of natural ingredients in Europe, whether it's cosmetics industry, food industry, or natural health products. The popularity of plant-based foods is going to continue to increase, as I've shown earlier, whether it's health reasons, the environment, or animal welfare. Consumers want more plant-based products. They also want more clean label products, something I will cover a bit later. Ethical sourcing and sustainability schemes are becoming more and more important. And European buyers and European companies want to see transparency and traceability in their supply chains. So yes, they do want natural ingredients, organic ingredients, but they want proof that it is organic. They want to see proof that it has been ethically sourced as well. And industry standards and certification are becoming more and more important. And the last pointer there is you need to be innovative. So I'm going to cover that too. So clean label, this isn't something I've talked about so far. What we're seeing here in Europe is more and more consumers, they want to buy food products and personal care products which do not contain any contentious ingredients. And one of the reasons for that is a big rise in food allergies and sensitivity to things like gluten, to lactose and peanuts. And because of that, we're seeing this whole big category emerge of free from foods. It started off from foods, but it's also gone into the beauty industry now as well. Ethical sourcing. Now, this trend is becoming very important. So if you're a supplier of natural ingredients in Asia or Africa, Latin America, there's going to be more and more questions about has it been ethically sourced and can you prove it? And what we're talking about here is ethical sourcing of plant or agricultural materials, where it can be things like shea nuts or it can be baobab. What buyers want to hear from you in Europe is that has it had a positive social impact? Has it had a low environmental impact? And how can you prove that? And because of that, we're seeing more and more schemes coming out for ethical sourcing. The United Nations, they have a biotrade principles and criteria. They have a charter which they give to companies or producers in developing countries saying that you should try to meet these principles. And then you've got the Union for Ethical Biotrade, which is an NGO based in the Netherlands, and they have a charter for ethical sourcing and biotrade. And they've also launched a certification scheme 2 years ago where you can actually get products certified to prove that the ingredients have been ethically sourced. Now, when you talk about ethical sourcing, the one certification scheme which is most associated with that is fair trade. And with fair trade, it's all about having a positive social impact for growers in developing countries. Fair trade, Europe has the biggest market for fair trade products in the world. It started off with agricultural commodities, then it went into food, and now it's gone to the beauty industry. And I've got some examples over here where companies are using fair trade ingredients and how they're displaying that on their product packaging. Here in the UK, the Bulldog brand, which is the leading brand of natural male grooming products, they're using certified fair trade ingredients. In France, you have the Themis brand, which is also ethically sourcing ingredients and having them certified fair trade. Then you have the Nourish organic brand in the US and Fair Naturally brand in the UK as well. So when you talk about ethical sourcing, the main certification scheme which they're talking about is really about fair trade, but it also involves things like charters, which I've talked about before, United Nations, etc. Now, what we're seeing in this industry is this: more and more sustainability schemes are being introduced for single ingredients. There's no longer just organic and fair trade, which is made for a whole range of crops. You're probably all aware of RSPO for sustainable palm oil. There's Sucro for sustainable sugar, RTRS and Proterra for sustainable soya. And you've also got Sustainable Rice Platform, which is backed by the United Nations, and that's a certification scheme for sustainable rice. Now, this is part of a wider trend where you're seeing a whole proliferation in terms of sustainability schemes and eco-labels. And the food industry is really ahead here. You've got over 200 eco-labels and sustainability schemes in the food industry, which represent some ethical or sustainability aspect. And now that's a big dilemma for producers in developing countries, because then the question you've got to ask is, which one do I adopt? And which ones will European buyers actually look for? So that's actually creating a big issue there. And the next point is traceability. As I've said before, it's no longer good enough just having natural ingredients. Buyers want to see traceability. They want to know, where was it actually grown? Who were the growers? How was it collected? Did you adhere to fair labor principles? And can you ensure that there's been no child labor or slave labor involved in the production of these natural ingredients? So blockchain is becoming more important. The DNA tagging is being used by some companies to give assurance to end users that the natural ingredients are ethically sourced, that they've met all the different principles which the companies have in their charters. The last thing I want to finish is case studies. So I want to go through this very quickly. So some of the companies which have been successful in Europe, this is a Zimbabwe company. They established in 2012. It's now one of the leading suppliers of baobab in the world, and it undertakes ethical sourcing, works closely with wild collectors to provide traceability for its products. And as you can see over here, its baobab is certified organic according to European Union standards, US standards. It's a member of the UEBT, which is showing that it's proving that it's ethically sourcing these ingredients, and it's also got Fair Wild certification as well. The second example I want to talk about is Kendaloo, Peru, and they supply natural and organic oils as well as food ingredients, and many of them are indigenous to Peru, and also it's proving that they're ethically sourced. They're a member of the UEBT, and they signed up to the charter to prove that they're sourcing these ingredients with respect to the environment, as well as looking after the welfare of the growers or the collectors. Now, let's talk about innovation, the last point. Now, there is a lot of demand for natural ingredients in Europe. However, if you're going to be successful in this market, you're going to have to think about innovation. And the first example I've got here is this Dutch company called Fairtrade Original. And they launched the first jackfruit in tins in the Netherlands market in 2019. And they actually collected an award from this, from the Sustainable Food Awards, because this is marketed as a plant-based protein as an alternative to meat products in cooking. It's ethically sourced from Thailand according to fair trade principles, and it's meeting consumer demand for health products and plant-based foods. So this was a very good example of innovation, an ingredient coming from developing countries, ethically sourced, and is meeting consumer demand for plant-based foods. Other examples I want to cover: Forest Mice, this is a Dutch Indonesian company. They're sourcing ingredients from the rainforest in Borneo, which is wild harvested. They're working with growers in Borneo to collect those ingredients. A lot of them are certified organic. They're meeting fair trade principles, and they have ingredients like coconut sugar and lippy butter, which they're supplying to the food and cosmetics industry. And that's a very good example of rainforest ingredients, something innovative that they've launched here in Europe. Then you've got guayusa, which is coming from Latin American countries like Ecuador. It's considered to be a superfood ingredient. It's sold as a tea or it's sold as an infusion in beverages. That's produced in Latin America. A lot of it is certified organic, and it's being sold here in Europe. And then the last example is this Cambodian company called Ibis Rice. And what they've done is they're producing organic, wildlife-friendly rice in 50,000 hectares of land area, which is native to the ibis bird. And what they're doing is they're helping conserve that ibis bird by this ethical sourcing procedure. And they've launched that product in Cambodia. They've now taken it to other Asian countries like Singapore, and they're bringing it here to Europe. So here are some examples of natural ingredients or natural products which are sourced from Asia, sourced from Latin America, which are being successful in Europe, and they're being successful because they're not just natural, but because they're being ethically sourced and they're providing something new to consumers here in Europe. And I'm going to finish there. So a little bit over time. I know we've had some problems with the poll. I'm going to be back to take some questions and answers. But for the moment, I'm going to switch to the next speaker.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So I'm the next speaker. My name is Fabian Link. I am the business operations manager of Africrops, and we are a company based in Berlin. We've been in business since 2013 and have specialized ourselves in the trade with African plant products. Our two main products we've already heard a little bit about today. It's moringa and baobab, which we sell both, as nutritional supplements to the health food industry, as well as the cold pressed oils from moringa and baobab seeds, which are of course experiencing growing demand in the cosmetics industry. And here in the picture we see the first product already. It's moringa, of course, which I'm sure some of you will already know. And this picture has been taken in Tanzania, and this is, even though we're a Berlin-based company, this is really where our story starts, where our background is, myself and the founders of the company, our background is in the developmental sector, where we oversaw a lot of good projects, a lot of competencies were transferred. But ultimately we felt projects are always for 3, 4, 5 years at most. Good things are built up, and at the end of the day everyone goes home again. So that buzzword that we always keep hearing about, sustainability, we felt it was lacking in this instance. And so we asked ourselves, how do we become sustainable? And so we looked at the 3 pillars of sustainability. They might also be familiar to you. And we see there's environmental sustainability, there's the economic sustainability, and the social sustainability. And what we really felt is often lacking in developmental projects is this economic factor. And so we figured if we were going to have a sustainable project, it must be economically viable. A trade relationship exists as long as everyone has a benefit from it. And of course, in an ideal scenario, this is a whole lifelong. And so of course we are now becoming sustainable if we are able to achieve this. And so the question was, what do we trade? And so, of course, again, the comparison to the developmental sector, where we, of course, as a private sector, differentiate ourselves. We didn't ask what does Africa need, but what does Africa? Whoops, what does Africa have that the world needs? And so there, of course, one quickly comes across the usual suspects: coffee, chocolate. But of course, these kinds of products, they're already well known. The market is very saturated. There's very big producers, suppliers, and so it's really hard to get into that market. And yeah, of course, with such a saturated market, the margins are also very low. And of course, yeah, we want to earn money both for ourselves as well as for our producers and our partners in Africa. And so we ended up with moringa at first, which you already saw, later on baobab. And of course, there's a lot more interesting niche products that we keep looking at. For example, now also in the cosmetics industry, there's a lot more oils that we find that are native to Africa that have very high demand. Things like marula oil, mongongo oil, yeah, and the likes. Now, yeah, what attracted us to moringa at first was really its yeah, very broad nutritional spectrum and its many benefits. It's got a very high protein. It's lots of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. So really a very complete plant product in this sense. And of course, observing the organic market trends. Yeah, one could talk about a mega trend. We saw that many more niche products kept yeah, popping up and establishing themselves in global markets. When I say global markets, of course, we're primarily in the German market, but we sell across Europe, and I think some of the experiences are similar in other countries. And so we saw things like chia, quinoa, all these products pop up, and of course we just as consumers were more conscious about their health, as we also just learned from Amarjit, but we're also more open to new products. And so of course this is a good opportunity to search out these niche products that have special qualities and introduce them. Now, of course, this is all hanging together with the organic trend. So yeah, we had to look, what does this actually mean? And so here you can see the main cornerstones of it, right? Primarily, it's a sustainable way of using the soils and the environment, not using any chemicals, not for pesticides or fungicides and things of that nature. No GMO. Right, we have to remember, ultimately it's the consumer that's into organic products, that is health conscious, that is more open to these products. So we're not going to establish a GMO moringa. It's just not what the consumer here is looking for. And so this is how we've now identified a product. We also realize what this product sort of needs to entail in terms of the quality standards. And so at first we really one more thing I should also add, if we look at its definition of organic farming, of course, with this very focus on a natural way of harvesting and processing crops, it is very much suited to the African both employee landscape, right? We have, depending on where we look in Africa, between 60 to 80% active in the agricultural sector. And of course, already foregoing many of these chemical pesticides and herbicides. So in a way, we have a competitive advantage for African producers when it comes to producing these organic niche products. And so, yeah, we started, we at first really just tried to be importers and distributors. So really just, yeah, knowing that we want moringa, we want it to be organic, then looking really mainly on the internet, who can provide this, and then importing it and selling it. Now, at first, this kind of worked, but we really very quickly ran into problems and realized that more input was needed. It wasn't enough that we were just importing the products and selling them on. We really had to view the whole value chain and become active, yeah, in the beginning of the value chain already. Really training our partners and ensuring that we can always produce a high quality. And so we here you can see a little overview of some of the measures that we took. And yeah, most importantly, we established standard operating procedures, SOPs, which were developed with the partners, and really ensured that that every batch is produced by the same standard, that we never have any quality issues, and of course that that we do not just have a high quality one time, but every time, and so that we can also offer. We're a wholesaler, of course, so we also sell to other company clients here in the European markets, and so that we can offer them a consistent high quality, and that they know if they come to us, they can always be sure of the quality, and it's not great one time and yeah, not so good the next time. This is particularly important for moringa, and that's why I think it's quite a nice example, because moringa is so highly dense in nutrients. It is of course not just important for human consumption, right? If you ever see a goat come anywhere near a moringa field, you will see that they take a straight beeline for the plants. And so you can see they also have an appetite for this highly nutritional plant, but of course also much smaller things like microbiology, fungi, and so these all need to be kept out of the product to ensure high quality. And yeah, and to ensure this, we needed to set up yeah, these standard operating procedures, really regulating every aspect of the cultivation, and really not to be underestimated. Very quite complex. Yeah. So again, right, we were talking about the market barrier entries earlier, and I thought it was also interesting that, yeah, nobody has the problem of the personnel and the right conditions, right? Africa has a pristine, I mean, I can't generalize too much, right? But for the most part, it's very low environmental pollution. It's pristine environments, and there's lots of labor available. So really ideal conditions to produce very high quality products. But yeah, again, from our side, right, as an importer, it's always the quality. It really always is the quality. Very important. So yeah, so this was really our main yeah, our main stumbling block at first. And of course, once we develop the partners and really have this holistic view of the value chain, new things come up. And so, of course, if somebody has a large farm, for example, we produce in Tanzania and in Namibia, right? So if we have a large farm in Tanzania, you're not just an organic farmer. Over time, you are a successful businessman, an entrepreneur. And so, of course, it's not just at this point, not just about your know-how of organic farming, but also you need to develop your business. You need to manage people. You need to manage your farm. And so this is a whole new set of skills that needs to be developed. And especially as the farm grows, these things become have increased importance. And so we started looking at these aspects first. And as our partners grew, we also provided consulting on this and establishing that the books are always kept, that it's very professional, that the exporting documentation is done right, really more of these admin type of issues. And of course, once they are successful businessmen, they're producing a high quality, we then look at the next step again. Like I said, we've been in business since 2013, so over time, of course, it gives opportunity to expand our scope of activities. And so we said, for example, looking at a market like Tanzania, we told our partners it's not just the European market that needs high quality baobab, it's the local market as well. Baobab grows in Tanzania, but there's no organically certified provider of
Fabian, are you still there? Because I cannot hear you anymore. And also the audience is telling that they cannot hear you anymore.
And all these imported products. And sorry?
You're back.
Can you hear me?
We didn't hear you for a moment, Fabian, but please continue.
Okay, I hope you didn't miss too much. What was the last thing you heard?
We missed like the last minute.
The last, quite a bit. All right, I will recap it in a nutshell. I hope I don't repeat myself too much. So what I was saying is our first really focus was to establish high quality products. So we really went into the agricultural aspects of the production, looking how things are produced and processed. And later on, of course, once you have a producer producing large amounts of plant products, it becomes, you're not just an organic farmer at that point, you are also a successful businessman. And of course, that requires new expertise, such as business development, keeping your books in order, managing your workers and your farm. So really a whole new set of skills, which we then also made sure to transfer to our partners, so that they were really in very, very well versed in all aspects of their business. And ultimately, a third phase, the newest phase, and this is one that I would like to stress also to the participants of this webinar, is once you produce a high quality, it's not just the European and the American markets that require a high quality and have a demand for a high quality. It's also the local markets. Yeah, there is giving the example of Tanzania. There's a lot of baobab produced in Tanzania, but there's no one who can provide it in an organic quality, and certainly not at the standards that our partners are able to produce, that we developed. And so we really encourage them to also search out the opportunities in the local market. There are opportunities. And of course, if you go to a supermarket in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, you'll find all the European products there. You will find the butter from Ireland and the tomatoes from Holland and the the cabbage from Germany. So it's if African producers will not focus on their on the local markets, there are others that will search out those opportunities, and we see this happening already. And so really want to encourage everyone to also look out for those opportunities and develop local markets as well. So really not to lose focus of that. Yeah, that is in a nutshell what we are about. A little bit of the story that we've already gone through, and of course some of the stumbling blocks that we've encountered in our time. And now on this last slide, you will see some of the products that we offer. So you see there's baobab and moringa in powder form, so really geared towards the health food sector, and then also the moringa and the baobab oil. Now we are sort of both a wholesaler, and we also have our own brand, which you see here, the Essence of Africa. So it's really it's two legs with our brand. We really want to create awareness for these new types of products, and of course, through a wholesale, we then also provide the products to companies that process them further. So the oils, they are introduced into skin lotions, lip balms, things of that nature, shampoos. Really not our expertise. That's why you see we only offer pure products. We really want to focus on what we're good at, which is the agricultural know-how and the business development.
Thank you, Fabian.
Very welcome.
Fabian, I think you're at the end of your story, which was very interesting, I think, for our audience. And
all right,
we still have some time left for questions. Is it okay, or do you want to say? Do you still have something to say, Fabian, about your presentation?
No, I am done with my part. I'm open for questions.
Great. So we're going to answer some of the questions which are still in there. Some of the questions were already answered in writing, but we have we had two questions regarding the disruption due to COVID-19 on the natural and organic sector. I'm going to ask Amarjit to say something about the impact of COVID-19 on the sector for the near future.
Okay, first thing is I realized that my webcam wasn't on during my presentation, so I'm sorry everyone, but you couldn't see me. So coming to the question, the impact of COVID-19, there's actually been a lot of disruption, especially in developing countries. India entered a lockdown in March, very, very early, and a lot of natural ingredient suppliers faced disruption because their factories were forced to close, there was no processing of plant materials, and even exports of herbs and spices from India all halted. Another example is Malaysia. A lot of the palm oil is supplied in the country, and the suppliers actually using labor from Indonesia. Now the lockdowns caused this migrant labor to stop, so then there was not enough manpower available to process the palm oil and send it to export. So there's been a lot of disruption caused by emergency measures, lockdowns, caused by COVID-19, but also transportation distribution costs. They've gone up because there's been a lot of additional paperwork, there's quarantine measures at ports, a lot of flights have been cancelled, so cargo which used to go on passenger planes cannot go, and they have to use other forms of transportation. So there has been a lot of disruption in the supply of natural ingredients coming into Europe because of COVID-19, whether it's in terms of lockdowns, manpower, in terms of production processing facilities, as well as distribution and transportation. Maybe Fabian, what's your experience? Have you faced some issues there as well because of?
On the supply side, yeah, some issues, but nothing too severe. Right, our sort of most recent delivery came from Namibia, which is a very sparsely populated country. So COVID didn't really have the impact on our production there that we saw in other countries. The most significant impact actually that we saw from COVID was, I guess you could say, a rather positive one actually, in the sense that the demand for health food products just went up still. Yeah, people want to strengthen their immune system, stay healthy, and yeah, of course, are searching out yeah, the types of products that we deal with, like moringa and baobab. So that was actually quite positive.
Okay, I think there's another question here from Martin Boone. Martin, I think I actually had you in my presentation, Fair Trade Original, so it's nice to see you in the audience. So the question is, it's expected that COVID-19 will have a long-lasting effect of the shift towards more sustainable supply chains, or is it expected this will be a small shift? The feedback we're getting from the industry is that it's going to have a long-term impact. If you look at traceability, transparency in supply chains, this was already becoming important pre-COVID. Now, after COVID, I think a lot of companies are re-examining their supply chains. They're looking how they can make their supply chains more robust, how they can prevent the supply chains to have this disruption or less vulnerable to these supply shocks in the future. And as part of that, they're looking at more control over their supply chains. They're looking at things like blockchain technology to prove that the ingredients are coming from the stated sources, to make sure that they're meeting all the environmental indicators which they're looking for, and to also prove that what it says on the pack is what it actually has for the ingredients all the way back in Africa and Asia. So yes, we think it's going to become more and more important as a result of COVID.
Great. Amarjit, I also see a question from Gilles Beauville. Is asking our opinion about the Upcycled Food Association. Where does it stand? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, the Upcycled Food Association is based in North America, in USA. They have launched the standard just 2 months ago. The standard is for upcycled ingredients. It's an initiative which is gaining ground in USA, but it's mainly for American ingredients, which are a byproduct from food production. We don't see it so important yet that it's going to develop outside USA and it's going to become important in Africa or Asia. And just to highlight that point, the fastest growing certification scheme in North America is non-GMO project verified, and sales have increased from 0 to about $26 billion in 10 years. But is that certification recognized in Europe? No. Is it important for African companies? No. So we consider that to be very much a local scheme which has been taken off in the US. It could grow internationally, but we don't think it's important for African and Asian companies at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Amarjit. Any other questions? I see at the end there are a lot of participants in this webinar who want to do business with Africrops, which is nice for you, Fabian. They want to send samples of their moringa. And we will send these through Africrops later on. Do you have any additional comment on the certification of moringa in Europe, Fabian? Are you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I already said, right? Quality is the most important one, and for this, organic certification is, of course, the one that says the most about the quality. Anytime that you deal with a you source your products from from Africa or also from India, I believe it is similar, right? Customers will always ask you about fair trade certification as well. We get asked about this a lot. You will see on our products that we are not fair trade certified. For a number of reasons, right? One thing, of course, is also that we look at the whole value chain, not just this trade aspect. So it's too short for us in a way. And on the other hand, also we want to develop our partners as independent entrepreneurs, and we also find that that fair trade says, has too many sort of regulations that we don't agree with. For example, something like that a producer needs to reinvest a part of their revenue into their production. And so, of course, nobody's going to tell a European or an American businessman how to spend their money. And so, of course, we don't think it is right to do this either. In terms of presenting the sustainability, of course, and the projects in Africa, and the social aspect of our work is, of course, still very important. And but we think fair trade certification is not the only way to show this. We rather prefer to show our story, provide pictures, videos, really showing what is actually being done there, and really creating some transparency in the value chain like that, rather than through a certification. We're also looking at some other new tools, right? You mentioned the blockchain technology. There's many other tools that we now find which really are very useful vehicles in terms of transporting this story behind the product to the consumer. And so we're looking at those.
Thank you. I have one more question maybe for you, Fabian. Ethan Eastwood asked, how do you open the mind of consumers introducing moringa in Germany?
Well, I mean, with I guess just like with any product, right? As an entrepreneur, you ask yourself, what do people need? What do consumers need? What can I provide? And of course, if we look at the benefits of moringa, it is quite clear, right? It has one thing that we, for example, highlight is the high protein content and the very high value protein, and also the anti-inflammatory benefits of moringa, which of course are perfect if you're an athlete and have sore muscles. And so this is one use that we convey to consumers. And in general, also with the moringa oil, for example, right now in the cosmetics sector, completely different. Here we see more and more that consumers, they want to avoid things like microplastics. Amarjit, you showed it earlier. Really, the cleanness of the product is very, very important. And so we say, hey, here's moringa oil. It's one ingredient. It doesn't get much cleaner than that. And so, both for skin and hair, we really recommend that. And there again, also because it's got these anti-inflammatory benefits as well, we've in particular found a high demand with people who have problematic skin inflammations, things of that nature.
Okay, thank you, Fabian. I see one more interesting question, or I see more interesting questions, but this one I'm gonna ask Fabian if you can say something about it. The question is, is there any correlation between certified sustainable product with premium price? So do you get a premium price if you have a better price if you are certified?
Well, it depends on what certification we are talking about. Certainly, right. I mean, of course, I'm always talking about Moringa and Baobab here, of course, right? Those are the products that we know the best. And for those products, one has to say 10 years ago, there was a market for them without organic certification. Now, if one is not organically certified, one will never be able to sell it in this market here. There are just no buyers for it. So it's not even a matter of achieving a higher price. It's a matter of being able to sell at all. This is at least what we see with the organic certification. Then if you look at other certifications, for example, we have, I don't know, I think it's very big in Germany, maybe not so much other places, is a Demeter certification. This is, yeah, more holistic approach, also slightly spiritual, I would say. In terms of it goes beyond organic certification. It's very, very niche. It's very specialized, and there's not a lot of suppliers for it. And if you can provide this, then yes, you can certainly also demand a far higher price. But this really is a very specialized, very niche market, and it's not very big. So one can achieve a higher price, but if you can really sell the quantities is another question.
Yeah, maybe if I can just give a point there, you know, one of the questions always comes up is about price and certification, saying a lot of the producers, developing countries saying, well, why should I go organic? Why should I go fair trade? Why should I get my ingredients certified if there's no guarantee? I think you need to look at the way the market is moving. It's about having high quality ingredients and also traceability. If it's certified organic, we're proving that it's meeting some high quality standards, that there's been inspection, there's been certification, and the same thing with fair trade as well. And another way I think you need to look at this is you're going to get a premium for that extra effort, getting it certified. You're going to get a higher price than what you would normally do. So long term, there are benefits to moving down the certification route.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, I mean, we always get asked, you know, are you fair trade? So there certainly is a demand for it. There's no question about it. What we now feel, I think, going forward a little bit, what we're observing is that things like just the term fair already has been so overused and has also been misused, right? We've seen a lot of large companies that provide fair trade certified chocolate and coffee, where it then turned out weren't a fair trade. And of course, that also harms the reputation of a fair trade. And also the consumer I would say well, maybe not yet, but they are getting bored slowly with this. And so there we see new approaches are needed and are very much in demand. Things like the blockchain certification that you notice. And simply, of course, visuals, right? You won't see any major company. You had a nice slide with all the big companies that are now providing their fair trade products and organic products. They are showing and pushing their story into the front line, and you also see that a lot of them now have their own sort of seals that they put on it. If you look at our product, we've got our own little seal. I saw some of the other ones that I recognized. They're hand in hand from Rapunzel, which is a very big organic brand in Germany, right? They're all coming up with their own things and really trying to show the story rather than just putting a seal on something.
Okay, thank you. We're running out of time a bit. We're over time already, so I'm just going to ask Amarjit if he has seen one more question he would really like to answer.
I think there was a question there about greenwashing, and that's going to link to what Fabian just said. Consumers want ethical products, they want sustainable products, they want natural, organic. And sometimes the danger is that brands come up with their own seals, their own certification, and this creates a lot of confusion because you can go to a health food shop or organic food shop now, and you can get lost in this jungle of labels and seals. I think it's good to have organic certification because it's protected by law. You cannot make an organic claim on your product unless it's meeting EU regulations. But unfortunately, the same is not for fair traded, it's not the same for natural, it's not the same for free from, ethically sourced. So I think there's a danger there that there's a proliferation in all these claims where consumers will actually get confused and they don't know what to buy, you know, so it can be self-defeating in the long run.
Yeah, to actually add to that, I was at an event not so long ago, also where I was asked to speak. There was 10 companies presenting themselves, and it was a sustainability event. And we found that out of those 10 companies, we were the only ones that actually also had projects where they produced the products, and the 9 other ones, they greenwashed themselves essentially by donating a portion of their revenue to an NGO or another organization, and essentially they are doing the sustainable projects and green, providing a little bit of their shine to the to the companies that otherwise really do very little in terms of sustainability. So there's definitely always this drive towards it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna thank the audience for attending this webinar. I hope it was all very interesting for you. I realize we in this time we have not answered all the questions. And for now, when we end this webinar, you will receive an evaluation form. So please tell us what you think about this webinar in this evaluation. That will be appreciated. And I want to thank Amarjit and Fabian for giving this presentation. I found it very interesting myself, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Also, thanks from my side.